So then you must agree that Obama was not focusing whatsoever on the issues that were affecting Black America if you don't think that Trump is right now, because the numbers are in and blacks are doing better under his administration. You're almost aboard the Trump train.
Go to their safe spaces, and I'd love to trigger people. Let me ask you something. Do you hate Americans with black skin color?
Absolutely not. I actually love Americans with black skin color so much that I'm willing to fall on the sword 1,000 times for them to wake up and realize that we are being lied to, abused, and used by the Democrat Party.
How about Americans with white skin color? Do you hate them?
I do not, and that's a problem for people on the left.
Progress is not a skin tone. Progress is a number, okay? And for so long we've been convinced, look, he's taking a photo op with Beyonce and Jay-Z. That means absolutely nothing. Chicago got worse while Obama was in office, and he came from there. That's what I mean, you can't dispute the facts here.
The abortion rate is actually higher than the birth rate in New York City.
It's a literal genocide. Community. It's a literal genocide under the definition of United Nations. A literal genocide. Thank you. I had a really productive conversation with the Black Lives Matter chapter at UPenn 2 weeks ago, and it was really amazing because they showed up thinking that I was anti-black because, I don't know, they read EliteDaily.com or something weird. And I get to speaking and I say, you're focusing on 16 unarmed, or about 16, it's actually decreased since 2016, unarmed black men that have been shot and killed by police officers. You have a higher chance as a black person of being struck by lightning. White people, white men and Hispanic men are more likely to be shot and killed by a police officer than any black man, right? Could you imagine if you refocused your energy on the 17, 18 million black babies that have been aborted since 1973, the 900 black babies that are aborted every single day? And I've said this before, and I will say it again. If Black Lives Matter changed their initiative to black babies, if they changed their initiative to talking about what's happening in New York with 9-month abortions, I would put on a BLM t-shirt tomorrow. That is the truth. We should be focusing on the horrendous nature of Planned Parenthood.
And the abortion rate is actually higher than the birth rate in New York City.
It's a literal genocide. It's a literal genocide under the definition of United Nations. A literal genocide is encouraging people, is stopping the birth rate, right? When you talk about the fact that people want to focus on white nationalism and white supremacy, right? I think there was approximately 3,500 black people that have been killed by the KKK in the civil rights era, 3,500. We're talking millions of black babies that have been aborted. And that gets no airtime. Why? Because progressives love Planned Parenthood. Liberals love Planned Parenthood. The Democrats love Planned Parenthood. It should be defunded. I am the biggest advocate for defunding Planned Parenthood.
I'm really interested in your perspective because I think you're a fascinating person.
Thank you.
There was another tweet that said, the Democratic Party is comprised of racist white liberals.
That is correct.
Am I a racist white liberal?
Well, let's go back. And let's say, I will say this, that many people in the party are not aware of their own racism. Let's go back to an early part of this conversation where you said to me, are you concerned about the color in the White House? Why would you ask me that question?
Does it bother you that there's no prominent African Americans in the White House itself? Do you think that's important? Sure. So to you having, like, you don't look at, you know, it is an administration that has more white men than past administrations have had. Yeah, but that doesn't bother you. You don't think that diversity is important? No, not at all. Charlie, what are you hoping that the president gets out of these interactions?
I think it's pretty apparent that Mr. Liu believes that black people are stupid and will not pursue the full clip in its entirety.
The witness will suspend for a moment. The witness may not refer to a member of the committee as stupid.
I didn't refer to him as stupid. That's not what I said. You didn't listen to what I said. May I continue?
Please. Witness may continue.
Sure, even though I was called despicable. As I said, he is assuming that black people will not go pursue the full 2-hour clip. And he purposefully he cut off, and you didn't hear the question that was asked of me. He's trying to present as if I was launching a defense of Hitler in Germany, when in fact, the question that was asked of me was pertaining to whether or not I believed that whether or not I believed in nationalism, and that nationalism was bad. And what I responded to was that I do not believe that we should be characterizing Hitler as a nationalist. He was a homicidal, psychopathic maniac that killed his own people. A nationalist would not kill their own people. That is exactly what I was referring to in the clip, and he purposely wanted to give you a cut-up similar to what they do to Donald Trump to create a different narrative. That was unbelievably dishonest, and he did not allow me to respond to it, which is worrisome and should tell you a lot about where people are today in terms of trying to drum up narratives. By the way, I would like to also add that I work for Prager University, which is run by an Orthodox Jew. Not a single Democrat showed up to the embassy opening in Jerusalem. I sat on a plane for 18 hours to make sure that I was there. I'm deeply offended by the insinuation of revealing that clip without the question that was asked of me.
It is so bizarre to think about my journey and being able to be up here, and the craziest thing is reading about myself and reading the headlines and how viciously I am attacked by the left. This is the left, the Democrat Party, and they claim to care so much about minority voices. They claim to love and champion women when we find the audacity to speak out and say what we believe in. And yet somehow they absolutely detest me. They absolutely detest me. And why is that? Why is that? What am I selling that they're afraid of, right? I speak about real issues that are impacting the black community, which is why they label me black somehow. I talk about the illiteracy rates. The illiteracy rates of black boys, 75% in California. Those are real issues we should be talking about. But no. They want to talk about white supremacy. They want to talk about white nationalism. They want to talk about things that will divide America, and they never want to fix the issues in any community because they stump on division. The only way they can sustain their party is if we are all at war with one another and fighting. And here, we don't believe in that. We believe in patriotism. We are all patriots. We are all a part of this great nation, and we are all Americans.
And Candace, the courage that you showed in front of the House Oversight Committee, Judiciary Committee, was just so unbelievable. And I think I speak for everyone in this room just to say thank you for speaking truth to power at the highest possible level, because I can't remember a time where we have had an advocate on that level and that stage be able to look those left-wingers in the eye and those Democrats and say, you have ruined my community and I'm not going to take it anymore. And so you very easily could have just, waited in line and played it safe, and you were not in any way disrespectful. They were disrespectful to you, and you punched back twice as hard. So I wanted to say thank you, Candace, for what she has done. It's totally amazing.
Thank you so much. Well, let's talk about some. Yeah, absolutely. First, let's introduce my partner in crime in this fight, and we fight every single day to wake up black Americans and to get them to realize that we are being sold our own oppression by people that never want us to get ahead. There is nothing at the end of victimhood. And I'm so pleased and honored to introduce my brother in this war, Brandon Tatum.
Give it up for Brandon.
Hey, thank you guys. I'm too loud for this thing. Thank you guys. I really appreciate the wonderful reception that we've had. I just want to say to you guys, man, it's our time to step up as Americans and take over this country. That's what it's all about, man.
And so for both Brandon or Candace, just talk about some of the issues that you guys talk about and then some of the demagoguery you face because of that. Candace, you touched on that a little bit.
Yeah, well, so it's pretty much, we know where we're at in America right now, where they're telling people that there's virtue in being a victim. Like, all you should try to do in life is try to figure out how you're a bigger victim than the person next to you. We call that the oppression Olympics. That's what the left loves to play, the game of oppression. And it works a little something like this. Okay, well, you're white and I'm black, therefore I am more oppressed. Now we're two black people. Well, you're a black male and I'm a black female, therefore I am more oppressed. I think to the left, the greatest thing you could possibly be would be a black woman that's a lesbian and disabled, and then you win the Preston Olympics. That's the game, right? That they want everyone to play, right? And what they don't tell you is that if you believe in that, if you become obsessed with victimhood and you attain that crown, you actually win nothing in life. There are no awards for actually being a victim. It just allows them to gain power. It allows them to steal your vote. It allows them to separate you and to divide you and to guarantee that you will react emotionally and not rationally.
Joining us to talk about the intense state of politics right now, we have Charlie Kirk, founder and president of Turning Point USA, and Candace Owens, Turning Point's communications director. They're in Washington to meet with the president. Welcome to you two. Can I just first ask, what is this event, and what are we going to be seeing the next couple of days here in D.C.?
You know, we had received so much interest over a period of time in this sort of youth black conservative movement, and it felt like we really wanted to harness the power and the opportunity and invite everyone to D.C., first and foremost, to bring them to conservative ideas. A major hurdle that the black community faces is not having the resources to get to different ideas and sort of being locked inside of a bubble. And having them listen to speakers that they perhaps haven't heard before, Dr. Ben Carson, Larry Elder, people who are routinely mocked in our community. So this is the first ever opportunity to do that in D.C., and we're really excited that it's happening this weekend.
Charlie, what are you hoping that the president gets out of these interactions?
Well, I first want to take a step back and just give Candace Owens credit for changing the national conversation around these issues from a conservative kind of perspective over the last year. When I first met Candace, one of the first things she said is, she said, Charlie, I think we can have a young black leadership summit that can be a lot bigger than any of the pundits or the consultants would ever dream. And I mean, tomorrow, 400 plus young black leaders from across the country. That's an accomplishment that, especially of a conservative, tilt, if you will.
And the number could have been much higher.
And that's right. And so the number could have been higher, and it was the last-minute influx of interest. And we had probably 5x that in applicants and in inquiries. But what Candace Owens and our urban engagement director, Brandon Tatum, have done at Turning Point USA to really garner more interest amongst the black community for conservative values, I think it's worth having the conversation, and it's something that, given all the recent news and attention around these issues, I think is something that will be quite interesting tomorrow.
Candace, there's obviously a bit of skepticism. As long as I've been in the game of conservative politics, as long as I've been a conservative, which is probably about sophomore year of high school, there have been conversations about how do conservatives win over more of the black community. There have been some prominent leaders. You mentioned Dr. Ben Carson, others who have come forward and have tried to get this conversation going. What are you seeing that's different now, really? Like, why is it? I mean, to Charlie's point, he's saying that you've changed the conversation. How and why is the conversation different?
It's funny that you say that, because I was able to meet with Dr. Ben Carson early on this year, and we spoke about that. Like, what are the differences? Why are people paying a little more attention now? And I think that, and to his credit, in the past, the conversation was almost so intellectual that it was hard for people to digest and process and to understand. And because the left had won the culture war, it was easy for them to mock them, to see a skit where perhaps Dr. Ben Carson or Dr. Condoleezza Rice are being mocked. And I think I'm a little more of a fighter, definitely in terms of starting my channel on YouTube and wanting it to be colloquial and wanting it to feel familiar, like you were talking to your brother and sister, and sort of taking back some of the turf that was lost on the culture war by making fun of people on the left in the same way that they make fun of us. I think that sort of helped bridge the gap and make people more interested in having the discussion.
Does it bother you that there's no prominent African Americans in the White House itself? Do you think
sure
that's
there
important?
is. Jaron, Dr. Ben Carson's part of the executive branch. That's not true. That's not true.
Well, within the White House itself.
Jaron is an executive with Jared Kushner.
What is his role?
He's a DAP, which is a Deputy Assistant to the President of the United States, which is a top tier. So that's not true.
Who are other individuals in the White House?
Well, I want to go back and answer your question. So, one thing that we always speak when we speak to conservatives about is we have to stop believing in this illusion that because somebody is black, they represent my interests. We learned that lesson via Barack Obama. I mean, he was in the White House for 8 years and didn't do much for the black community. So I'm not interested in the color of people's skin. So I'm interested in what they do and what they accomplish.
I'm really interested in your perspective. Yeah. So to you, having you don't look at it is an administration that has more white men than past administrations have had. Yeah, but that doesn't bother you. You don't think that diversity is important?
No, not at all. I think that we have to stop believing that diversity is the color of people's skin, because if you have the Black Caucus, for example, which didn't stand up and applaud when Trump announced that we had the lowest ever unemployment in the black community. That's concerning to me. So a big part of the conversation that we open is in making people understand that's an illusion that the left has sold, that somehow because somebody matches my skin color, because somebody matches my gender, they have my best interests at heart, and that is completely fallacious.
This is a tremendous time to be alive as a black American. We've been existing under this facade, these lies the Democrats have orchestrated because they consider us a low information voter market, you know, and so they think we're not going to research the stats and we'll never find out.
I hate the race card. It's played every election year.
I actually like when they do this, have these delusional responses. Just admit that the blacks are doing better under the Trump presidency. That's totally fine. But it's this refusal to admit it, and blacks are going to start doing the research and they're going to start seeing what's going on. This is a tremendous time to be alive as a black American. We've been existing under this facade, these lies the Democrats have orchestrated because they consider us a low information voter market, you know, and so they think we're not going to research the stats and we'll never find out.
I hate the race card. It's played every election year.
Absolutely.
Every single election year. It drives me nuts. You know, 14 states, Daryl, now have record low unemployment, record low. Black Americans, record low. Hispanic Americans, record low. Women in America. Is that his legacy?
For that progress, that still doesn't deal for black Americans twice that of whites.
Until every forgotten man and woman has a job and a trajectory to the life they want in this great free country. You're not answering my questions. Look at these numbers.
Now I have agree in some ways.
How did Obama fail with 13 million more Americans on food stamps? Did he fail? Did he fail with 8 million more in poverty 8 years later?
No, he did not fail at all. He did not fail at all. I think what he did was he made black America a focus. What I want to see, though, is President Trump to show us that black America is a priority for him and to have specifics as to how he plans to do that. There are issues of mental health,
he's skating
education,
around the issue, and it's okay. I actually like when they do this, have these delusional responses. Just admit that blacks are doing better under the Trump presidency. That's totally fine, but it's this refusal to admit it, and blacks are going to start doing the research and they're going to start seeing what's going on.
I have been frustrated. Al Gore, Republicans don't even want to count you in the census or, you know, the change in tone and cadence before
to hold up a mirror to what they're doing, so that's why we never heard those names. 4,000, that's exactly right. That's the exact same number, about the same number of Americans that were slaughtered in the Iraq War, right? It's a war zone.
Killed.
Well, listen, that's because Chicago is run by Democrats, and they never want to hold up a mirror to what they're doing, so that's why we never heard those names. 4,000, that's exactly right. That's the exact same number, about the same number of Americans that were slaughtered in the Iraq War, right? It's a war zone. And Trump offered to send the National Guard, and the Democrats majorly opposed him. So what it comes down to is Trump is trying to be effective there, and we're seeing that we have so many great results in black America because of him.
What do you say to Daryl?
But Sean, let me say this, though. I think I want to hear from our president to tell us that something about black America is a priority for him tomorrow. I would love to hear him focus on mental health, education, health care. Those are issues that he can help us with tomorrow.
Yeah, Obamacare worked out great for everybody.
On those issues.
Well, look, it sounds like you're signing up for 8 years of Trump. That's what it really comes down to, because he's doing a great job, the numbers are better, and he needs more time in office to continue to do an amazing job. So it sounds like you're almost aboard the Trump train, which makes me feel happy. We're agreeing on something here.
Well, let me say something. I want to see Trump be successful because this is our country, but I don't think he is focusing on the issues that really affect black America. I hope he would, though.
So then you must agree that Obama was not focusing whatsoever on the issues that were affecting black America if you don't think that Trump is right now, because the numbers are in and blacks are doing better under his administration.
I love President Obama, and I don't think we should spend any more time trying to put him down.
I think it's important to show that things are a lot different, and it's important because for so long they have told us that because there was a black president, this meant progress. Progress is not a skin tone. Progress is a number, okay? And for so long we've been convinced, look, he's taking a photo op with Beyonce and Jay-Z. That means absolutely nothing. Chicago got worse while Obama was in office, and he came from there. That's what I mean, you can't dispute the facts.
Is this a cultural shift? Is this going to have...
We are on the brink of a cultural shift, and I can tell you right now, it is going to be...
All right, the left's attempt to shut down and just demonize conservatives in this country is ramping up again. This time, they're attacking African-American conservative commentator Candace Owens for taking on Black Lives Matter protesters during an event at UCLA. Take a look.
What is happening right now in the black community, you're going to hear it in this room first. There's an ideological civil war happening. Black people that are focused on their past and shouting about slavery, and black people that are focused on their futures. Victim mentality is not cool. I don't know why people like being oppressed. It's the weirdest thing I've ever heard. I love oppression. We're oppressed. 400 years of slavery, Jim Crow, which, by the way, none of you guys lived through. Your grandparents did, and it's embarrassing that you utilize their history. You utilize their history, and you come in here with more emotion than they ever had when they were living through it. More emotion than they ever had when they were living through it. It's embarrassing. You're not living through anything right now. You're overly privileged Americans.
And on Saturday, Kanye West praised Owens on Twitter, and he wrote this, quote, "I love the way Candace Owens thinks, but not everyone of Owens is a fan with compliments and support Kanye West's support." Look at what Tom Arnold went on a sexist, brutal, vicious, hateful, racist tirade on Twitter. Here's just some of what he tweeted. "Aside from being an insane alt-right race pimp, Candace Owens thinks Donald Trump is literally the Messiah, not you, at Kanye West, so you might want to reconsider." He also wrote, "At Real Candace, good luck glomming on to Kanye West. His family already told him you were a phony and a fraud, a former Democratic bad actress." But I don't even want to talk about this anymore. Candace now joins us here. You are a total star. I watched that tape. I am so impressed and so happy for you that you have this gift. But I am so sad for you also that you have to take on those vicious attacks like that.
Thank you so much, first of all, for the compliment. It means a lot coming from you. And let me tell you, do not be sad for me. This is exactly what I wanted. This is exactly what I intended to happen, because I knew exactly what I was going up against. When you go up against the left, this is what they do. They try to essentially say that you are not allowed to think differently. I say it all the time. Blacks are ideological slaves and pawns to the Democratic Party.
Try and invest in real estate. If you don't put your money on under a mattress, believe me, I know what you mean. It's not the same, though. How I watched Kanye West, I was so happy that he did that, because that's what I always thought. Everybody should embrace this freedom. Why do so many have a problem with this?
It's not a problem with it. You have to think about what the left has done successfully. They've hijacked our education. They hijacked our families via LBJ and the Great Society Act, taking away black fathers so that black youth would start to look at hip-hop culture and NBA and NFL athletes for the right direction. This is why they're constantly utilizing Hollywood, and there's developed this underground system of conservative thinkers in Hollywood for fear of losing their jobs. Kanye West is just the first person that's brave enough to come out swinging against them and saying that he has a right to think according to how he would like to.
I really thought, honestly, it was so refreshing that he did that, and I was happy for you. You know, a very dear friend of mine, Deneen Borelli, she's been a guest on this program often. She wrote a best-selling book, Blacklash. The first thing she writes in the book is Google my name. And because she happens to be a black American who is conservative, the things that come up are the most vicious. Why? Why do you think that is?
Well, I think that the reason is because politics is downstream from culture. And if they lose the culture war, they lose absolutely everything they have. They cannot afford to have black people thinking differently. If we move the black vote even 5%, the Democratic Party is absolutely finished. So it's essentially a house of cards that they've been building. When you get black icons like Kanye West, you get...
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
On.
No, finish your thought.
Or you get black stars to speak out against them, they're in serious trouble.
Look at under President Trump, black and Hispanic unemployment is at the lowest level it's ever been at. 14 states have record low unemployment numbers. After 8 years of President Obama, 13 million more Americans were on food stamps, 8 million more were in poverty. I said that every night. Do you think this is going to change? Because the Democrats, every year, every election year, they play the race card. Republicans don't want to count you in the census, the James Byrd ad, and so on and so forth. Do you think this changes? Is there a cultural shift based on results coming?
100% there's going to be a cultural shift. And you mentioned the Black Caucus, which stood for more food stamps when Obama announced it, but sat when Trump announced black unemployment. That is disgusting, okay? And that is because they work for leftists. It has been infected. It is a swamp. And I'm telling you right now, we are on the brink of an ideological revolution, and the black community is going to start waking up. And I'm so happy that I get to play a part in this.
Wow. Conservatives under attack. You have Candace Owens, you're watching it there from yesterday, and Charlie Kirk. They were both ambushed because they were having breakfast in Philadelphia. That's it.
Candace Owens, Communications Director of Turning Point USA, and Charlie Kirk, Founder and President of Turning Point USA, to tell us about what happened yesterday about this time at a restaurant in City Center, Philly, called Green Eggs Cafe. So you're there because you're going to have a meeting together to talk to your graphics team and whatnot, and you live in Philly, and then one of you realized, hey, look over there, somebody's wearing Antifa gear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's exactly right. And so we kind of progressed through breakfast, having fun, you know, just going through, you know, Turning Point USA related, you know, business items. And then we look out the window about 30 minutes later and a mob starts to form.
So the people inside had alerted people outside, they're in here.
They sent out some sort of a bat signal, which said we have found the conservatives, come and harass them. And that's exactly what they did. They descended very quickly. They mobilized. It lets us know that this is a well-funded effort. This was at 8 a.m. Monday morning, which means it's likely that this is their job. And it was quite terrifying how quickly they were able to assemble that group. And
they blew a whistle, didn't they?
That's right. They were blowing whistles, bullhorns.
This close to my face and my ear. And this, like, I mean, it felt to me reminiscent of the Civil Rights era because the entire police force is black. There was only one white police officer. The entire Antifa group is white. And they were screaming at us, calling us race traitors, telling the police officers that they were racist, all black and Hispanic.
And you're a white supremacist?
And I was a white supremacist, and they said, you're a race traitor. Whose race are we betraying? White liberals? Is that who we've betrayed because we don't think like them, because we refuse to subscribe to political orthodoxy?
Were you nervous? Did you fear for your safety?
Well, look, we were shocked. And, you know, Candace and I turned to Candace, I said, look, let's stand our ground for a couple minutes here and just kind of see what this is all about. And the police did an unbelievable job, and we really have to, I mean, what they go through and the harassment. Here's these, you know, these protesters, and that's probably a generous word to describe them, harassing them, the police nonstop. And we just kind of stood there. Next thing I know, I'm having water thrown at me, eggs thrown at me. We did not retaliate. We never will. That's not the right way to handle situations like this. And look, we don't want to play the victim card. That's a very important thing. But we do want to warn the American people that this is the new face of the Democrat Party.
And Candace, you actually were yelling. You were yelling, we love the police.
I love the police because it was jarring to me to see this, the illustration of black men standing peacefully. These police officers were black, and they were standing peacefully, silently, as they were being shouted at by white liberals. So it really, I felt a necessity to defend them and say, we love you guys. We love the police. Thank you for protecting us.
They don't love the police, but you know what? They might have been following orders. A go sign was given directly and loudly by Maxine Waters a few weeks ago. Right. Remember this.
You see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out and you create a crowd. And you push back on them. And you tell them they're not welcome.
That you were fashioned.
And they're doing what she said, am I right?
They're following orders.
Exactly what she said.
And look, they want us to apologize or back away from our support of the president. They are so frustrated that this president is succeeding, and they cannot reconcile with the fact that he's going to be the greatest president in modern American history and that the economy is booming, and you see them losing their mind, and they're resorting to these mob thuggish tactics.
Let me ask you something. What would the news coverage be like today if a couple of people in Trump hats, Make America Great Again hats, were hooting, yelling at people inside a restaurant, drove them out, and then dumped water on them?
Black people. Imagine if people in Trump hats were yelling at a young black woman, screaming at her because of her political affiliation. Imagine what the stories would be. It would be wall-to-wall coverage, and we would never hear the end of it. But somehow it's okay, and the argument that we're hearing is that it's not illegal to discriminate based off of political affiliation. Do you guys actually need a piece of legislation to tell you that this is wrong? To tell you that harassing people based on who they support politically is wrong? Then that's where we're at in this country. We have to start considering rights for conservative thinkers.
But the thing is, look at Kirsten Nielsen having dinner. Look at Sarah Huckabee Sanders having dinner. Stephen Miller, they're outside protesting at his apartment. This is getting closer and closer to going really bad. Steve Scalise still recovering from injuries after being shot because he happened to be playing second base, practicing for on his Republican softball team.
And Rand Paul was mauled by his neighbor, political hate crime, one after the other. And we as conservatives, we reject the victim status. Instead, let's be victors and show up in huge force in November and not allow these radicals to regain control of Congress. Because where are the Democrats denouncing this? Silence.
Well, I wonder, how did they know y'all were in that restaurant, and how did they get such a big group so quickly?
They had 4 people that were eating tables down for us with Antifa decals on their bag that recognized us instantly. We thought, okay, they recognize us, no big deal. We didn't think they were going to send out a signal to tell people to come harass us. And I do want to say this. It doesn't matter what they do if they harass us in the streets. This is not going to change the effects of this administration. I've said this before many times on this couch. We saw the Rasmussen poll this last week. Black support for Donald Trump has doubled since this time last year. And the reason is because people are starting to recognize the left, the Democrats, they are the party of hate.
And there's something about you articulating your message as a young African-American woman that really scares the left.
I've been tremendously effective. I've been showing the truth. I've been telling the truth. I've been telling them about real black history and showing that it was never the Republicans that were racist in this country. It was always the Democrats. The Democrats were behind the terrorism and the KKK. The Democrats are behind Antifa and the terrorism that is happening today.
It's a shame that y'all can't have breakfast in peace, so y'all stay safe. Have you thought about security now?
Yes.
Yeah, that's something we're obviously looking very close at. And it's a sad day in America that 2 20-somethings can't eat quietly at a cafe and we're harassed for our support of the president and conservative values. But we're not going to back down. We're just getting started.
Can't have a plate of eggs and toast. That is a searing indictment of the political atmosphere right now. Charlie and Candace, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Ms. Owens.
That was unfair.
It was not unfair. You had plenty of extra time. Ms.
No,
Owens.
I did not.
Ms. Owens.
Mr. Chairman, There we go. Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Mr. Collins, thank you for having me here today. I received word on my way in that many of the journalists were confused as to why I was invited, and none of them knew that I myself was the victim of a hate crime when I was in high school. That's something that very few people know about me because the media and the journalists and the left are not interested in telling the truth about me because I don't fit the stereotype of what they like to see in black people. I'm a Democrat. I support the President of the United States, and I advocate for things that are actually affecting the black community. I'm honored to be here today in front of you all because the person sitting behind me is my 75-year-old grandfather. I've always considered myself to be my grandfather's child, and I mean to say that my sense of humor, my passion, and my work ethic all comes from the man that is sitting behind me. My grandfather grew up on a sharecropping farm in the segregated South. He grew up in an America where words like racism and white nationalism held real meaning under the Democrat Party's Jim Crow laws. My grandfather's first job was given to him at the age of 5 years old, and his job was to lay tobacco out to dry in an attic in the South. My grandfather has picked cotton, and he has also had experiences with a Democrat terrorist organization of that time, the Ku Klux Klan. They would regularly visit his home, and they would shoot bullets into it. They had an issue with his father, my great-grandfather. During my formative years, I had the privilege of growing up in my grandfather's home. It's going to shock the committee, but not once, not in a single breath of a conversation did my grandfather tell me that I could not do something because of my skin color. Not once did my grandfather hold a gripe against the white man. I was simply never taught to view myself as a victim because of my heritage. I learned about faith in God, family, and hard work. Those were the only lessons of my childhood. There isn't a single adult today that in good conscience would make the argument that America is a more racist or a more white nationalist society than it was when my grandfather was growing up. And yet we're hearing these terms sent around today because what they want to say is that brown people need to be scared, which seems to be the narrative that we hear every 4 years right ahead of a presidential election. Here are some things we never hear. 75% of the black boys in California don't meet state reading standards. In inner cities like Baltimore, within 5 high schools and 1 middle school, not a single student was found to be proficient in math or reading in 2016. The single motherhood rate in the black community, which was at 23% in the 1960s when my grandfather was coming up, is at a staggering 74% today. I am guessing there will be no committee hearings about that. There are more black babies aborted than born alive in cities like New York, and you have Democrat Governor Andrew Cuomo lighting up buildings to celebrate late-term abortions. I could go on and on. My point is that white nationalism did not do any of those things that I just brought up. Democrat policies did. Let me be clear. The hearing today is not about white nationalism or hate crimes. It's about fear-mongering, power, and control. It's a preview of a Democrat 2020 election strategy, same as the Democrat 2016 election strategy. They blame Facebook, they blame Google, they blame Twitter. Really, they blame the birth of social media, which has disrupted their monopoly on minds. They called this hearing because they believe that if it wasn't for social media, voices like mine would never exist, that my movement Blexit, which is inspiring black Americans to leave the Democrat Party, would have never come about, and they certainly believe that Donald Trump would not be in office today. Looking on the next thing to focus on now that the Russian collusion hoax has fallen apart. What they won't tell you about the statistics and the rise of white nationalism is that they've simply changed the data set points by widening the definition of hate crimes and upping the number of reporting agencies that are able to report on them. What I mean to say is that they're manipulating statistics. The goal here is to scare blacks, Hispanics, gays, and Muslims into helping them censor dissenting opinions, ultimately into helping them regain control of our country's narrative, which they feel that they lost. They feel that President Donald Trump should not have beat Hillary. If they actually were concerned about white nationalism, they would be holding hearings on Antifa, a far-left, violent, white gang who determined one day in Philadelphia in August that I, a black woman, was not fit to sit in a restaurant. They chased me out. They yelled race traitor to a group of black and Hispanic police officers who formed a line to protect me from their ongoing assaults. They threw water at me. They threw eggs at me. And the leftist media remained silent on it. If they were serious about the rise of hate crimes, they may perhaps be examining themselves and the hate that they have drummed up in this country. Bottom line is that white supremacy, racism, white nationalism, words that once held real meaning, have now become nothing more than election strategies. Every 4 years, the black community is offered handouts and fear. Handouts and fear. Reparations and white nationalism. This is the Democrat preview. Of course, society is not perfectible. We've heard testimony of that today. There are pockets of evil that exist, and those things are horrible, and they should be condemned. But I believe the legacy and the ancestry of black Americans is being insulted every single day. I will not pretend to be a victim in this country, and I know that that makes many people on the left uncomfortable. I want to talk about real issues in black America. I want to talk about real issues in this country and real concerns. The biggest scandal, this is my last sentence, in American politics is that Democrats have been conning minorities into the belief that we are perpetual victims, all but ensuring our failure. Racial division and class warfare are central to the Democrat Party platform. They need blacks to hate whites, the rich to hate the poor.
Thank you. I had a really productive conversation with the Black Lives Matter chapter at UPenn 2 weeks ago, and it was really amazing because they showed up thinking that I was anti-black because, I don't know, they read EliteDaily.com or something weird. And I get to speaking and I say, you're focusing on 16 unarmed, or about 16, it's actually decreased since 2016, unarmed black men that have been shot and killed by police officers. You have a higher chance as a black person of being struck by lightning. White people, white men and Hispanic men are more likely to be shot and killed by a police officer than any black man, right? Could you imagine if you refocused your energy on the 17, 18 million black babies that have been aborted since 1973, the 900 black babies that are aborted every single day? And I've said this before, and I will say it again. If Black Lives Matter changed their initiative to black babies, if they changed their initiative to talking about what's happening in New York with 9-month abortions, I would put on a BLM t-shirt tomorrow. That is the truth. We should be focusing on the horrendous nature of Planned Parenthood.
And the abortion rate is actually higher than the birth rate in New York City.
It's a literal genocide. It's a literal genocide under the definition of United Nations. A literal genocide is encouraging people, is stopping the birth rate, right? When you talk about the fact that people want to focus on white nationalism and white supremacy, right? I think there was approximately 3,500 black black people that have been killed by the KKK in the civil rights era, 3,500. We're talking millions of black babies that have been aborted. And that gets no airtime. Why? Because progressives love Planned Parenthood. Liberals love Planned Parenthood. The Democrats love Planned Parenthood. It should be defunded. I am the biggest advocate for defunding Planned Parenthood. Just pay attention to how stupid the left thinks the black community is. That this is the most important, insulting thing in the entire world. I mean, Hillary Clinton with the hot sauce in her bag was pretty bad. AOC with the black scent was pretty bad, right? They have literally for the last decade been saying that we cannot fight for voter ID laws because fundamentally black people won't be able to vote because we're too stupid, I guess, to figure out how to get ID. Can't do anything in society without ID, but somehow black people will no longer be able to vote if we have voter ID laws. We can't figure out how to get that done, right? But somehow with reparations, they think we're going to be able to find the paperwork, our ancestral paperwork dating back to slavery, to prove that we were in fact slaves. It's the hypocrisy. The astounding hypocrisy of the left. It always amazes me. They outdo themselves. It's an Olympic sprint every time. I say, they can't get more insulting than that. And here they go. Reparations. Just saying, we might have to dig up a lot of paperwork to do that, so maybe we can get voter ID, and we should have voter ID, because who is being harmed? Illegals are voting, and who is the #1 group that is negatively impacted by illegals? Black America. So when Trump says build the wall, I say build it. I will be the first one down there laying bricks. Right, and we talk a lot about this too. So there's a second thing that I hate. If I had two big initiatives, it would be the first thing obviously would be to transform black America, because I think we've been sorely miseducated. I started as a liberal, he started as a liberal, and we finally feel like we're awake to the nonsense that is happening in our community and where the cancer is really coming from, which is liberals and their policies, right? The second initiative is I would love to destroy radical feminism, okay? We are in the midst of a society that is trying to turn women into men and men into women. If there is anybody wearing a feminism is for everybody shirt that is a man, I would like you to reconsider what's actually happening. What they are trying to do is break down the family unit by destroying roles, okay? If you want to know what happens when you break down the family unit, look no further than the black community. The father absence rate when my grandfather was growing up in the 1960s, okay, and the 1940s was 23%. Today, the single motherhood rate in the black community is astoundingly 77%, okay? They're not talking about that though, right? White supremacy, we have to be afraid of white supremacy. No, we have to be afraid of the fact that you intentionally incentivize policies that remove the father from the home, and you are trying to spread that far and wide in American society right now. And can I just add that I love masculinity. It's not toxic. Society is driven by strong men and strong women. We need strong male figures. Having a strong male figure in my grandfather growing up is what saved me. It is what saved me from liberalism. A strong male figure. We have to fight to defend men. And ladies, it's on us. This battle is on us. You know, I have to say, my favorite part of the Brett Kavanaugh hearing was the buses of white women in pussy hats that came, you know, and they went around and they would say on social media, they'd at me and say, how could you, as a black woman, you need to be out there defending this. You need to be out there defending against angry white men, as they like to depict anybody who's straight and male and is Caucasian. Angry white males, right? And I said, how stupid do you think I am? You think I don't know my own history? Do you think this is exactly what got my ancestors lynched? Just believe women? With no due process, no facts? We already tried that in the civil rights era. I don't want to believe women. I don't want to believe men. I want to believe facts. And there were 0 during that case. Right, Brandon?
That's right. With my country accent. Like,
I really could connect to her when she gave that black scent, you know? Ain't nothing wrong with that. I'm like, first and foremost, black people speak English, AOC. It's so absurd and it's so insulting. And what would it really amount to if they actually did it? And they didn't even say they're going to do it. They were like, let's have a full-throated conversation, whatever that even means, Elizabeth Warren, a full-throated conversation about reparations, which means they're going to assemble some committees and talk about it, and it's never going to happen, because that's what they do every election cycle. The black community gets promised a bunch of stuff, and we don't get it. And then another 4 years comes, and we get promised a bunch of stuff, and we don't get it. It is time to get off of this hamster wheel. It is time for Americans to realize that they have grown radical, that they have no interest in repairing anything whatsoever. They are only after power. That is it. And they think that Trump took it from them, and they will do anything, they will say anything, they will put on any accent to regain it. And I just want to also touch on what it is that we fight for here at Turning Point USA, because you'll see the signs that we believe in really simply in free markets and in letting the markets decide. And it's such a simple concept, but it is the greatest deliverer of economic justice, how hard you work, how great your ideas are. That's how people should be rewarded, on a merit-based system of their ideas, and let the markets decide what's right and what's wrong. This is the message that I'm trying to deliver to the black community, right? We know socialism doesn't work. Of course it doesn't work. 100 million people have been killed over the last 100 years. And you have leftists saying, well, let's just try it in America. It'll be a little different. We'll just move it a little bit, you know, tiny bit different. No, it's always the same. It's always a disaster. They're not fleeing Venezuela to come to America because socialism is great. It's the opposite. Go speak to Cuban Americans about socialism. Go speak to Venezuelan Americans about socialism. They think we're insane. Insane for even talking about it in a country that they believe is so great. And I ask myself all the time, why does the left hate America? People say, oh, you can't say that. That's not fair. You're painting a broad stroke. Well, name me one leftist politician that has said anything positive about America in the last 4 years. You can't find them. You can't find them. They're hostile towards our values. They're hostile. They want to divide. They want to turn America into a different country and a different place. And we have to fight to protect everything that America is. There is a reason why everyone wants to get into this country. If you were born in America, pat yourself on the back because you already won the lottery.